Playing against Michael Jordan, we're going to hear so much about the triangle offense, and rightfully so, it put everybody in position. You need that when you have an all-time great player. It creates a level of discipline and balance on the floor. So shout to Tex Winter and Phil Jackson for instituting that. But what normally happened was they'd swing the ball once or twice, and then all of a sudden it became something within the league we called the Bermuda Triangle, where really it was just MJ going one-on-one, and they just isolate for him. And such a dominant player, such a dominant scorer. The Black Cat was faster, was stronger, was more athletic, had the killer instinct like no other. So now let me get to you, Jay Williams. I saw you and Marcus Spears, my brothers, on this television show, talking about Michael Jordan's leadership style and comparing it to LeBron James. Let me tell y'all something. When y'all want to have GOAT conversations, Greeny, I can't believe you allowed this to happen. Okay. First and foremost, we can't have an MJ versus LeBron conversation because LeBron got to leapfrog some other people on the Mount Rushmore, everyone. Okay, there are some people that play basketball that accomplished some things and achieved the level of greatness that LeBron just has not been able to do. You want me to name them for you?
Please.
Besides Michael Jordan?
Yes.
You ever heard of a guy named Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Mm-hmm. Okay. You ever heard of a guy named Bill Russell? You ever heard of a guy named Irvin Magic Johnson? It's just, when did LeBron pass Magic? Did I miss something? Did I miss something? He's in the top five, but those guys.
The name Michael Jordan conjures images of unparalleled dominance, a player who seemed to defy the laws of basketball. His highlight reel isn't just a collection of great plays, it's a testament to a level of performance rarely, if ever, seen before or since. But what really made Michael Jordan unstoppable wasn't just his genetics, athleticism, or killer instinct. It was the way the game was structured around him. Playing against Michael Jordan meant facing a player who could dominate in every way, scoring, defending, playmaking, and it was no coincidence that the Chicago Bulls system, the triangle offense, put him at the center of everything. As Jalen Rose explained, the triangle offense created discipline and balance on the floor. But in reality, when the spotlight hit, it was often just MJ isolating, attacking, and scoring with lethal precision. They called it the Bermuda Triangle in the league because once the ball got in the right hands, there was no escape for the defender. And MJ thrived in that environment. Faster, stronger, more athletic, and with a killer instinct unlike anyone else. So before we even start debating LeBron James and his place in history, it's important to remember this. The triangle was brilliant, but the true genius was Michael Jordan himself. And that context is essential because any GOAT conversation, MJ versus LeBron, or anyone else, starts with understanding just how dominant, versatile, and transformational Michael Jordan truly was. Consider this. Michael Jordan scored 50 points or more in a playoff game 8 times. That's more than Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Wilt Chamberlain combined. He also holds the record for the most playoff games with 40 or more points, surpassing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Allen Iverson, Stephen Curry, and Dwyane Wade together. In fact, Jordan is the only player in NBA history to have more 40-point games in his career than games where he scored less than 20 points. Jordan's almost divine aura, his brutal trash-talking on the court, and his sheer physical dominance instilled fear in the hearts of his opponents. While they needed to get good sleep before facing the Bulls, Jordan could reportedly drink and smoke cigars before a game and still drop 40 points. His Majesty made it look easy, even in the most intense moments of the game. He hit the game-winning shot 28 times, including 7 game winners in the playoffs. And MJ wasn't just a scorer. He had the most all-defensive first-team selections in history with 9. He's the all-time leader in blocks for a guard and has the most seasons with over 200 steals with 6. In 1989, when the Bulls lost their starting point guard, coach Doug Collins had Jordan play point guard, and he recorded 10 triple-doubles in 11 games, averaging 30 points, 11 assists, and 9.5 rebounds per game. Between 1,991 and 1,996, MJ played 13 consecutive playoff series where he averaged over 30 points per game, retiring with 6 rings, 5 MVPs, and a perfect 6-0 record in the finals. But despite his seemingly invincible legacy, Jordan also had his weaknesses. So, how good was Michael Jordan really? Is he truly the GOAT? To answer that, We'll start with his genetics and natural talent. Michael Jordan was actually supposed to be short. No one in his family measured more than 5'9", and in his sophomore year of high school, Michael was even cut from the basketball team because he was only 5'1" tall. However, the Jordans were blessed with supreme athleticism. Just look at Larry, Michael's older brother, who could dunk at 5'8". So, when an unexpected growth spurt pushed Michael to 6'6", he became unstoppable. By the end of his high school career, Jordan was averaging 27 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists. As a freshman at the University of North Carolina, Jordan averaged a modest 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. His fundamentals, ball handling, and confidence weren't yet at a superstar level. But all that changed in the 1982 NCAA Finals when Michael hit the game-winning shot against Patrick Ewing, securing the national championship. Jordan said this was the biggest turning point of his career because after that, his confidence was through the roof. In the next 2 seasons, Jordan continued his development as a player under Dean Smith and became a super-skilled player. He averaged 20 points per game, was selected to the All-American First Team, and in his junior year in 1984, he was named College Player of the Year. But based solely on his college career, it was hard to predict that Jordan would reach the pinnacle of the NBA. After all, many great players before him had much more impressive college careers, including Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Oscar Robertson, and others. Due to his relatively modest college numbers, and because the 82nd were the era of the centers, Jordan was selected 3rd overall in the 1984 NBA draft behind centers Hakeem Olajuwon and Sam Bowie. When his first season began, it only took Jordan 3 games to score over 30 points and 9 games to break 40. By the end of the first month, it was obvious that Jordan should have been the first pick in the draft. While Olajuwon looked like a star, Jordan was more like a supernova because there was no one in the league faster than him. It seemed almost unfair how he blew by opponents with a single step. Besides his speed, Jordan was also the most athletic player in the NBA, with an unparalleled vertical leap and hang time. When he attacked the rim, he looked like a fighter jet, and his quickness served as a runway for his vertical takeoff. When MJ elevated for a jump shot, it seemed like no one was guarding him, because the laws of gravity didn't seem to apply to him. Defenders could jump at the same time, but while they inevitably fell, Jordan continued to float in the air and seemed like he was shooting completely alone. Thanks to his aerial feats and incredible dunks, Jordan repeatedly became the NBA's most popular player. By 1986, he was voted into the All-Star game despite having only played 3 games up to that point due to an ankle injury. That same year in the playoffs, he set a playoff scoring record with 63 points against Boston. In 1987, he led the NBA in scoring with 37 points per game, which was and still is the 5th best scoring average of all time, trailing only Wilt Chamberlain's outrageous scoring outbursts in the early 62nd. Meanwhile, Jordan was miserable. Despite all the fame and individual accomplishments, he kept losing. In his first 3 seasons, Michael only won 1 playoff game despite being the best player in the league. But after Bulls general manager Jerry Krause drafted Horace Grant and Scottie Pippen, his life would change forever. In 1988, Jordan averaged 35 points on 54% shooting, plus 6 rebounds and 6 assists, winning the first MVP of his career. He also led the league in steals with 3.2 per game and averaged 1.6 blocks. Jordan won the Defensive Player of the Year award, becoming one of only 5 players in history to win both MVP and DPOY in the same season. And after the 1988 dunk contest against Dominique Wilkins, which Jordan famously won, many already started calling him the best player they had ever seen. But none of that mattered because the most important thing for Jordan was winning. And now with Pippen and Grant on the team, the Bulls achieved their first 50-win season since 1974. Chicago finally advanced in the playoffs, winning the first round against the Cavaliers with MJ averaging an incredible 45 points per game. However, in the second round, a more experienced Pistons team defeated the Bulls quite easily, winning the series 4-1. It was proof that individual greatness doesn't translate to playoff wins, a lesson Jordan still had to learn, but that didn't make him any less entertaining to watch. In the 1989 season, Jordan hit his first legendary NBA shot, known simply as the shot versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. In the second round, the Bulls overcame the Knicks, but again fell victim to the Pistons. In 1990, the story was the same. Jordan led the NBA in points and steals and was efficient, but the team couldn't overcome the Pistons' obstacle for the third straight year. In his first 6 years in the league, MJ had won 5 playoff series and lost 6 with an overall record of 25 wins and 29 losses in the postseason. After that third loss to the Pistons, the media started to doubt Jordan, questioning his ability to play on a team and wondering if he only cared about his points and his own performance. And in a way, they were right. In the 82nd, he often tried to score despite being surrounded by double and even triple teams, ignoring his teammates who were wide open. In 1989, he was a capable passer, averaging a career-high 8 assists per game. But Jordan always prioritized scoring first and passing second. He wasn't like Magic, Jokic, or Doncic, who manipulated defenses with their gaze and found open teammates. Jordan only passed the ball when he saw someone completely open, and only if he couldn't shoot first. Despite Michael's ridiculous scoring numbers, the Bulls' offense was always average during the 82nd. It wasn't until 1990, with the arrival of Phil Jackson and the emergence of Scottie Pippen, that the Bulls' offense ranked among the top 5 in the NBA. Pippen's passing and his ability to push the ball in the open court created many spaces for Jordan, who finally could rely on someone else to consistently create plays. But Pippen's value was perhaps even more noticeable on the defensive end, with an enormous wingspan, agility, and a tireless motor that allowed him to guard multiple players in a single possession. Scottie was just what Michael needed, as he allowed Jordan to play more freely. After those agonizing losses to the Pistons, Michael decided to increase his muscle mass, which was unusual at the time. Players didn't spend as much time in the gym, and if you looked at 82nd players, they seemed lean, but few were truly muscular. When MJ returned for the 1991 season, he was still super fast, athletic, and could contort his body in the air like no one else. But this time, he was also much stronger, which allowed him to better absorb contact and dominate smaller players with his physique. Another key factor was the arrival of coaches Phil Jackson and Tex Winter, who implemented the triangle offense. This strategy was based on cuts into open spaces and playmaking from the post. If executed correctly, the triangle was considered the most optimal offense for spacing. Jordan no longer had to constantly bring up the ball or force his shots. Now he received the ball closer to the rim, where he could impose his physicality and dominate like never before. Although Jordan was phenomenal from the moment he arrived in the NBA in 1991, he was at his absolute peak and won his second MVP award. The 1991 Bulls had the best offense in the NBA and crushed their rivals in the Eastern Conference. They swept the Nets, beat the 76ers in 5 games, and finally got their revenge on the Pistons. This time, there was no contest. Detroit was in decline after reaching 3 consecutive NBA Finals. While the Bulls were on the rise, MJ swept Isaiah Thomas and the Pistons, who famously walked off the court before the end of Game 4, refusing to shake hands with the Bulls players. But in the NBA Finals, another giant awaited Magic Johnson. And it seemed the 5-time NBA champion still had the upper hand when the Lakers defeated the Bulls at home in Game 1. That was until Phil Jackson made the adjustment of assigning Pippen to guard Magic, which turned the tide of the series. And in Game 2, Jordan dazzled the world with another iconic move. Switching hands in midair to score an acrobatic layup, the Bulls won the next 4 games and finally the championship. Jordan's hunger for an NBA ring was finally satisfied. Throughout the playoffs, MJ averaged 31 points, 8.5 assists, 6.5 rebounds, 2.5 steals, and 1.5 blocks, shooting a career-high 56% from the field. The 1992 season was a continuation of Jordan's peak form and the Bulls' dominance. Another scoring title with a very high shooting percentage, first-team All-Defense, and another MVP for his heirs. The Bulls once again had the best offense in the NBA and won a franchise record 67 games. Chicago reached the finals against the Portland Trail Blazers, and the media began pushing the narrative that Clyde Drexler was better than Jordan, saying that Jordan wasn't a good long-range shooter. So, Michael responded by hitting 6 three-pointers and 35 points in the first half of Game 1, a record for both threes and points in a finals half. That's the same game where Jordan does the mythical shrug. And although Portland tied the series 2-2, the Bulls were simply too good and won the series in 6 games, with MJ averaging 36 points in the finals. After the second championship and the Dream Team experience in Barcelona, Pippen and Jordan arrived for the 1993 season exhausted. The Bulls weren't as dominant in the regular season, but despite the fatigue, MJ again led the league in scoring, his 7th consecutive scoring title, and also led the league in steals. Chicago reached their 3rd consecutive finals, where they faced league MVP Charles Barkley and the Phoenix Suns, the best team in the regular season. Barkley was also the best player on the Dream Team, and when he won MVP, many started saying he might be better than Jordan. That infuriated MJ. But due to the Suns' inexperience and a nasty elbow injury for Barkley, the Bulls won the first 2 games on the road, and it seemed the path to the title would be easy. However, the Suns weren't going to give up so easily. They won games 3 and 4 in Chicago, and could have won game 4 if it weren't for Jordan. MJ buried the Suns with 55 points, the 2nd highest scoring game in NBA Finals history. After 5 games, the series was 3-2 in favor of the Bulls, but the remaining 2 games would be in Arizona. In Game 6, the Suns had the lead throughout the entire 4th quarter, but Jordan kept the Bulls in the game, and everyone expected Jordan to take the final shot to tie the game. But MJ was no longer the same stubborn player as before and dished the ball early to set up an open shot for John Paxson. The Bulls would win the game and with it, their 3rd straight NBA title. Jordan finished the 1,993 finals with averages of 41 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists, shooting 51% from the field and 40% from the three-point line. And this wasn't even his best series statistically. MJ was at the top of his game. His basketball IQ, winning mentality, and physical dominance synchronized perfectly. If we compare the 1,993 Jordan to his early years in the NBA, the growth was evident. When necessary, he pressed full court defensively. When no one else could score, he took control and led the Bulls. And when he was double-teamed, he dished the ball without trying to be the hero. In terms of basketball skills, Jordan physically became a much stronger player and a master of footwork and the low post. When he reached his desired position with his back to the basket, he spun and remained in the air for what seemed like an eternity, longer than his defender. The memories of those who doubted him faded away. Everyone knew he was the best player on the planet, and many believed that after the three-peat, he was already the greatest of all time. Amidst so much euphoria, success, and glamour, something truly dark happened in Jordan's private life. Just 1 month after winning his 3rd NBA title, his father was murdered, and Jordan retired from basketball for a year and a half. During that time, Jordan would switch sports and play in the minor leagues. But as we all know, that retirement wasn't forever. His heirs still had so much to give. So 18 months later, he returned to the NBA, and it didn't take him long to prove he was still the basketball god. In just the 5th game of his return, he scored 55 points against the New York Knicks. However, it wasn't all so easy. Getting back into a sport after a year and a half wouldn't be simple, even for Jordan. In his comeback season, he shot 41% from the field, the lowest percentage of his career. And in the 2nd round of the playoffs against Orlando, things didn't go as planned. Even though Michael averaged 31 points on 48% shooting, the Bulls weren't as strong in the paint. Horace Grant, who used to be their starting power forward, now played for Orlando. And alongside a young Shaquille O'Neal, the Magic simply dominated the Bulls in the low post. Many people will say that the Bulls lost in '95 because Jordan wasn't in his best shape after his retirement. And while there's some truth to that, Jordan actually averaged his usual numbers. The truth is that basketball is a team sport, and they lost because Orlando was bigger and dominated the paint. Fortunately, the Bulls management realized this and added Dennis Rodman to the team, who we can consider the greatest rebounder of all time and one of the fiercest defensive players. A year earlier, they had also added Steve Kerr, one of the most accurate three-point shooters of all time. And alongside a defensive bulldog like Ron Harper and Tony Kukoc, who was the most versatile power forward in the NBA, Jordan had the best supporting cast in the league. In the 1996 season, the Bulls were so good they became only the 2nd team in NBA history to lead the league in both offensive and defensive rating. They finished the regular season with a record of 72-10. And of course, Jordan won another MVP, averaging 30 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. In the playoffs, there was no stopping the Bulls. Only the Sonics in the finals showed any resistance, and Gary Payton was the first defender who truly bothered Michael Jordan, but he still couldn't beat him. Chicago won their 4th title with Jordan crying inconsolably in the locker room, as it was the first championship he won without his father. When the 1,997 season began, the Bulls continued to dominate the NBA. No team could match Chicago, who ran the triangle offense like a well-oiled machine. The Bulls dominated the regular season with 69 wins, and reaching the finals seemed like a walk in the park, as they only lost 2 games in 3 playoff series. But in the finals, it wasn't so easy. They faced the Utah Jazz, who featured the formidable duo of Stockton and Malone. This series would be remembered for the game where Jordan suffered from food poisoning and had a fever before playing. But despite the illness and with noticeable fatigue, he scored 38 points, and the Bulls won 90-88. In Game 6, Jordan trusted Steve Kerr for the final shot, and Kerr hit the game winner in the final seconds, securing the championship for the Bulls. Michael Jordan continued to make history and claimed his 5th championship title. However, when the 1998 season began, the Bulls were exhausted. Pippen had injury problems and disputes with management, and Rodman was more out of control than ever. But they still had Michael. Although he wasn't as athletic as before, and his efficiency had declined, Jordan was still capable of winning games by himself. The Bulls finished with 62 wins, despite Pippen missing half the season. And because of this, Jordan was named NBA MVP for the 5th time. In the playoffs, the Bulls survived the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals, winning Game 7 by 5 points. And then in the finals, the Utah Jazz awaited them again, hungrier than ever in an extremely tough defensive series where neither team scored over 100 points. Jordan demonstrated his clutch ability once again. He hit possibly the most famous shot in NBA history over Brian Russell, giving Chicago another NBA title and gifting us one of the most epic moments in sports history. Jordan achieved his 6th championship in 8 years, adding 6 Finals MVP awards as well. After 1998, Jordan retired for a 2nd time, marking the end of his prime. Even when he wasn't at his absolute best, Jordan was still the best player in the league. In his first 6 years, Jordan didn't win a ring, but he was the most electrifying athlete the NBA had ever seen, with unreal statistics and winning every possible award. During the first three-peat, Jordan showed a level of basketball that few, if any, have ever reached. And in the second three-peat, the Bulls won 72, 69, and 62 games in the regular season, and lost only 13 games in 12 playoff series from 1,996 to 1,998. The only year in his career where Jordan wasn't the best player in the league was probably his rookie season. Jordan was the best player in the world for over a decade. For all this, and due to his dominance, his 6-0 record in the finals, his 6 Finals MVPs, and his impact on the global popularity of basketball, it's hard to say that Jordan wasn't the greatest player who ever touched a basketball.